Hey everyone, I'm Jarrett with Cool RV Everything, and we're out here with Ashley and Performance Trailer Braking. They're doing the bearings on my own RV. Why is that important? Well, who are you anyway? How'd you get into this business? Because you've been around, and we all know you've done the bearings on mine for what, 4 years, 5 years now?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Since we've known you?
It's been a while. I've touched this rig many times. So
tell us a little bit about you.
Ashley O'Neill. I am the operations manager at Performance Trailer Braking, which thank you, Performance, for having me and our fellows out here in wonderful Quartzsite at this rally. I also am the owner and CEO of my own personal business for when I am doing installs, and that is AO Installations and Handywoman Services. I will get into a little bit more about me in just a minute, but I would like to introduce these two gentlemen who are working extremely hard on Jarrett's trailer. First, we got Chaden.
I'm here with Tate Services, representing Performance Trailer Braking. We're going to pack some bearings today.
Thank you, Chaden.
And I'm Ken Fortune with Countryside Mobile RV Repair out of upstate New York, here representing Performance Braking.
Thank you, guys.
And I'm helping these guys.
We'll keep up the good work.
Yes, especially since it's mine. Please keep up the good work. I would greatly appreciate that.
Just a little quick backfill on myself. I am the sister to Amanda and sister-in-law to Dan, the owners of Performance Trailer Braking, and Mike and Kelly, who are the VPs, the directors. They are the ones who found Performance Trailer Braking, found it was a good idea, and wanted to get the business flourishing and off the ground. And they've been doing a fantastic job for the last 7, I believe almost 8 years now. They brought me on, and well, here I am. Fast forward, I started out in the office, and now I get to get out here and get at rallies, meet people.
Get to have fun out here with all of us.
Get to get harassed by this man.
Somebody got to do it. Somebody got to do it. So if you need to have some fun, just call in, ask for Ashley, give her help.
Absolutely. I'll take all the good calls like that all day long.
So they're doing the bearings out here. We put on a lot of miles a year. I mean, a slow year for me, 25,000 miles of towing.
Yep.
And I've had a lot of people over the years go, why? Why are you having your bearings repacked? Why is this important?
Lots of reasons. The first one is preventative maintenance. It is very important to get in here, pull this is hubs, this is disc brakes, pull these hub rotors off, get your eyes on the bearings. You want to make sure that they're not scorched. You want to make sure all the little rollers are still rolling and not dented. Yeah. You want to make sure there's grease in them.
That'd be a good thing.
Grease equals rotation and moving properly and smoothly as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
If your wheels stop rolling, that's a problem. You know, so many people think about all the other things, the solar and the generators and all these things to help, and they're all great. I'm not saying that. But if you can't move your trailer from this site to the next site, how great and wonderful is all that? So just doing some of the simple things like a bearing repack, which we recommend per manufacturer even, once a year or about 12,000 miles, whichever comes first. In Jerry's case, I get to see him 2 or 3 times a year.
Somebody's got to do it.
Absolutely. The number one thing people always ask me, well, the axle, the spindle has that little zerk on there. I just, squeeze a couple shots of grease in there and keep on going, and that's fine. Don't do that. Please don't do that. If you are in a dire emergency, yes, get some grease in there. But so many people are misinformed and think that if you use that zerk and you just keep going till the grease is coming out at you, well, then you got grease in there. Yeah, but if you have a blown seal, is there a blown seal?
Not here.
You want to just hand me the hub rotor real quick?
Absolutely.
So, on the inside of the hub rotors, there's a seal right here. If that blows, that grease that you just shot and filled that cavity, not only filled the cavity, but your whole backing plate. That is specific to drums, brakes, disc brakes don't have that. But that whole cavity is now not only full of grease, but so is the backing plate. That backing plate full of grease, brakes, grease, you can do the math. That doesn't work out too well for you.
Well, it'd probably help your brake pads last a little bit longer. Because the more friction the brake pads have, the more they're going to wear down. And if you get that grease on there, you got no friction. Brake pads last for years. So that's a good thing, isn't
You'll never have to replace your brakes.
See?
Your brakes are never working. They're never working, so you're not going to save money in that emergency situation.
We just got to be bigger than the other guy. You'll win. Right, wrong, or indifferent. If you're bigger, you're going to win.
Well, right, true. But on a more serious note, these bearings, they keep the wheels moving. They keep your trailer upright. There's several people who have tire blowouts. A lot of times that goes back to a faulty part.
Yeah.
Doing your maintenance can also help catch these things before they become a disaster on the side of the road.
Yeah.
How many people have had to try to change a tire? Or God forbid, they're driving down the road and there goes their tire past them.
So speaking of that, since on the other side of our RV, we'll edit in and put that video in there to show that particular hub. We had an issue on ours, and we just had our bearings repacked about 6 months ago, and the issue wasn't there. So that's why it's important. So what did you see on that?
Basically, we found this race loose inside of this hub rotor. This race sits right here inside of the threads. Obviously, it's not going to go all the way in there because we're going to have to beat it in here in a minute. However, whenever we pull the race out, you can see the score down in here. So we're likely going to have to replace this hub rotor.
And there it is. This is why it's so important to do your maintenance.
Absolutely.
So what would have caused that?
Well, naturally, after putting lots of miles on it, it's gonna eventually everything wears down. It's gonna break up. Now, the score itself was from that wheel. When this thing gets loose, this will spin as you're going down the road, and that's gonna cause the interior of that hub rotor to degrade and get scores and scorching on the actual rotor itself. So, just something to watch out for whenever you're doing your bearing repacks.
Well, so your race wasn't seated properly, and the race is what the bearing sits on and spins fluidly. Well, with that race not seated properly, the race was spinning, which means it was spinning loosely, which eventually would have led to a wobble, which would have led to that outer bearing fouling, which would have led to the spindle nut backing off, which could have led to the wheel coming off. Jared doesn't have axles. He has more independent suspension, but even that can be catastrophic and still have to replace spindles and a lot more costly stuff. When you have axles, that can lead to a whole axle, spring, shackles. You could lose one whole side of your trailer. And we are talking about thousands of dollars, and especially trying to find a mobile mechanic out on the side of the road, you're going to be looking at a lot of money to get that stuff replaced in an emergency situation where not always, we all live in the world, we know parts can fail, no matter how much they're inspected and checked. We don't have a tool to get in there and check the quality of the metal. We don't know where they're at in their life cycle. But we can get them inspected. We can get new grease in there and make them running at their optimal level. And prevent and notice these things happening before they can become a disaster on the side of the road.
And something like ours, with having a semi truck, we don't feel a lot of the wiggles that trailers will make. So that tire on ours, it could have left. I may have not even noticed it. The trailer wouldn't have transferred that wiggle into my truck. So I could have still went 500 miles down the road with one tire completely missing and just thinking people were honking and waving at me because they think I'm cute.
That's why people are honking and waving at Jarrett.
Just saying, I'm a sexy beast.
That you are, my man. That you are.
But that's a definite concern. And I, until today, seen that, when it came off, that wouldn't have been something I would even think of. Even if I was doing my own bearing repacks, that little wiggle that's there, that the installer, I mean, as soon as he saw it, it was just like, something's wrong. We need to find out why. I wouldn't have known that. I would have just put them back together, went down the road, and then questioned the actual quality of the parts when it came off versus there's a problem. It needed to be fixed and handled. I wouldn't have known that.
Right. And that is one of the reasons why all of us that we are independent contractors, we're independent installers, but we all work under the PTB umbrella. And we all go through a very similar process in training and educating, and we all communicate with each other, even though we are all spread out throughout the country.
Yeah.
We are all talking on a regular basis, because when we see this, when we see that, when this comes up, I mean, there are things that even as installers, you don't see until it's too late, or and not by preventative maintenance or anything, but just, this is the first time I saw this happen, or have you seen this happen, or this specific trailer has this.
Yeah.
We have that internal networking communication. You guys are out here for all intents and purposes by yourselves.
Yeah.
You don't have the training and the experience and the background that we do to be able to spot these things before they become a disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to, I said they're not coming to a rally, they have no ideas, they're not as ingrained into the RV industry as a lot of people are. They're just, somebody wants to go out and have a good time on a weekend, and they hear, oh, I need to get my bearing repacks done. How do they get a hold of Performance Trailer Braking and get you guys out there to take care of them?
Yeah, so we have a website, performancetrailerbraking.com. You can go on there and fill out a form. You can also send us an email at info at performancetrailerbraking2.com. So otherwise, if it's an emergency, you can also call the business line. We monitor that very closely. Now, don't get me wrong, we have our own personal lives too. We do try to take weekends off, but we do monitor the phones, especially for emergency type situations, because customer care and support is what we try to do and what we are really emphasized on.
Yeah.
So reaching out in any one of those platforms, I mean, there is also Facebook and Twitter and all the other stuff. We have accounts on all the social medias. But yeah, just reaching out, send us an email or call, let us know the trailer and where you're at. So Chaden is in the process. He inspected this bearing, made sure it's good, which again, we're checking for burn marks on the bearing. We're checking to make sure the rollers all still have play, that it indeed does take grease.
Yeah.
That's how we know we can reuse it. This is called the bearing packer. A lot of people don't like that. Some of us use that because you got to do it the old-fashioned way with your hands and the grease.
That's
and
what I was
palm it
saying.
in there.
Put it in there. They just
squeeze
work
it out.
in there.
That's the only way to know for sure that it's going through every one of those slots.
Yeah.
Well, as I will show, and Jarrett can attest, I'll bring close to the camera, we can see by the indents in that old grease that the new grease has pushed it out of every single spot on that bearing.
Almost like a fail-safe on it. You know it went into every single one.
Yes.
There's no question on it.
And then try not to throw grease all over. And even right here, you can see all the little marks. Some of it smeared off from taking the cap off, but you can see the color change on this bearing. You got the darker color for the old grease, and in the center, it's all the new bright red, reddish purple. We use Lucas Red and Tacky grease.
Yeah.
But you can see all that push through that bearing. So this bearing now has all new grease in it and is ready for reinstall.
So with the bearings themselves, when you're redoing all of these, is there a particular time when you need to know when your actual bearings need to be replaced versus repacked?
That is a really fine line. So what I will say is it is hard to determine that because you don't know the life. I mean, you as the RV owner knows how long you've had it.
Yeah.
But if you bought it used, you have no idea when they were replaced most of the time.
Yeah.
So there isn't a fine-tuned number like mileage or years. There are a lot of factors that go into knowing when a bearing needs to be replaced. For us, when we're doing this, if it doesn't check off all those boxes, it's got to get replaced.
Yeah.
With bearings, you need to replace the race as well. Now, in an emergency situation, it's better to replace a bad bearing and leave the old race than nothing, or putting a bad bearing back in. But ideally, you want to replace both at the same time, because that new bearing is going to sit on that new race and it's going to roll and they're going to work together, where the old race is a little bit different. So, but as far as when to know, like I said, if it doesn't take grease, problem number one.
Yeah.
But before we even get to the grease part, we're inspecting for excessive burn marks and wear on the inside part of the bearing. We're checking all those rollers to make sure they indeed roll, they're not dented, they're not damaged, and that there's still a little bit of play. If the bearing isn't moving at all when you're playing from the inner circle to the outer circle, it's sealed.
Yeah.
If there's too much play and it's falling apart, it's bad. So there are a couple factors that go into knowing when to replace it And that's a lot of reasons why people have us come and do it
Yeah.
instead of doing it themselves, because we know all the things
Yeah.
that we're looking for. What I will say is manufacturers only warranty the stuff for a year. With that being said, I'll do a bearing repack, maybe 2, and always inspecting everything. But after that, so 2 to 3 years, I would recommend, just as a general number, by all means, this is not a warranty or a disclaimer or manufacturer. This is just from my experience. But about that 3-year mark, it does not ever hurt to replace this stuff, get new stuff in there, and know you're not going to have an issue in these parts failing on you on the side of the road.
And the bearings, if you do have to replace one, how much are those on average? Say for ours, if I got to replace just one bearing,
just one. The bearing itself, the inner one is $21. The outer one is 31, I believe.
Yeah. So it's not a large chunk. It's not like you got to replace a bearing. It's $3,000 for a bearing.
Oh my gosh, no. And at the end of the day, even if we replaced all the bearings, all the seals, that $300-400 for everything is way cheaper than a new axle, or God forbid an insurance claim and anything else if it's a much more serious event happening. So
if you look on that part of it, if you're, say the bearing does need to go out and somebody's just says, screw, I'll do it some other day. Well, 3 years later, still some other day. What all can they destroy by just letting those bearings just go to hell?
Oh my gosh. So the bearing will fail, the race will fail, the hub can fail, the spindle can go. If the spindle goes, that could affect the springs, the shackles. I mean, new tire and rim. That could cause a blowout. Like, you can be looking at thousands of dollars. Now, don't get me wrong. That, again, is extreme. It might go bad, and you catch it right away. You see that the tire's overheating.
Yeah.
But it still usually does enough damage that you're at least replacing the bearings, the races, the hub rotor.
Yeah. Little peace of mind for relatively very little cost.
Correct.
And when you're running down the road with 150, or some of the RVs, $250,000, $400,000 for a towable.
Yeah.
$50 for bearings for one reel, really not that big on the priority list of that RV.
Exactly. A lot of things on general, especially tandem axles, if you put about $500 a year, I don't know people's finances, but at the end of the day, $500 a year to have your bearings checked, your brakes checked, your axles, your springs, your shackles all greased, lubed, inspected, and have that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough about it and the quality of work. I mean, you guys see these guys back here working their tails off. They're inspecting everything that they touch.
And not only just what we touch. I mean, I get underneath here and I'm checking out the shear springs. I'm looking at everything underneath.
Yeah, everything associated with the suspension.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so
that's why we do bearing repacks, is that we can get our eyes on everything on your trailer, not just your bearings.
Yeah.
We can just troubleshoot anything that you have issues with. So
nice.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Good peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Especially when we're going down the road, we're, like us, our lives are going to the rallies. If we don't go to the rallies, we're not making any money out there. We don't have a normal job.
Absolutely.
So we rely on somebody like you guys to keep us on the road.
Absolutely. And a huge shout out, even like what Shaden just said and all these things. Another reason to go with us, if that all wasn't enough, is simply for the fact you get to stand here. We're working on Jared's rig live right now. He's got to see the race coming loose. He's got to see a lug nut that the cap was swollen and wouldn't come off.
These are your standard issue lug nuts here. You can see here, this is just a cap that actually goes over the lug. After using these things for time and time again, they're going to swell, they're going to crack, and you're going to have issues getting lugs on these things. This is a solid steel, non-cap. There's no crease here. This thing is solid. It's not going to swell. It's not going to crack. As you can see here, this is what I'm fighting right now. This cap started spinning on me whenever I put the socket on, and now I'm going to have to bust the cap off in order to get the socket on the actual lug.
So with that, could you imagine having an issue and being on the side of the road in an unsafe situation, and you can't replace your tire or put the spare on simply because you can't get a lug nut off? So this is what comes from manufacturing. This case on this half lug. that cap swelled so much we couldn't get the socket on it, and it was just spinning when the socket did get on it, so it wasn't actually turning this. This is a solid steel. It's longer. It's easier to get your hands on to start threading it and putting the new one on. So, again, could you imagine being on the side of the road, fighting with your back against traffic, trying to get this cap off? Or knowing you have peace of mind and you'll be able to put the socket on and take this wheel off and get the spare on. He gets to see that we're packing and inspecting these bearings and races. He gets to see, he gets to ask questions. I don't know about you guys. Every time I've gone to a dealer for my truck, I don't get to go in the shop and ask them. I don't get to see that they're actually doing what they're saying. We charge by the job, not the hour.
Yeah.
Part of that is so that we can take the time to answer questions and to educate.
Do it correctly.
Do it correctly. More peace of mind for us. Way more peace of mind for you guys.
Yeah. See, that's the bad part. When she does come out and she does the bearings on there, we got to turn over our man card. And then I got to do something manly to get it back. And, that's hard to do.
I love that I just offered you to wipe your grease on my shirt. No, the only other thing that I will say or plug is, again, performance trailer braking. We have 8 in the process of adding on a few more independent installers who are all their own individual companies that work under the Performance Trailer Braking's umbrella.
Yeah.
They're all licensed, they're all insured. Everybody goes through quite an extensive training, myself included. But as far as performance, great company. We're a very small, owned, family-operated business. It's me, my brother, Mike Kelly, and my sister.
Yeah.
It's the 5 of us that work the company, along with then the support of all the independent installers that actually go out and do the work for us.
And you guys are all over the country, too.
Yeah. So Performance is going to be at, I believe, 72 rallies this year.
Jesus.
Majority wonderful grain design. But we do go to several other manufacturers, rallies as well. We try to hit all 48 states at least once a year.
Yeah.
The Northeast is the hardest, but Q Ken, he's in the Northeast. And then as far as the company as a whole and what we offer, so we obviously come out and do these bearing repacks and help you with your yearly maintenance. But we offer the #1 safety thing you can do on your trailer, which is converting from drum to disc.
Yeah.
So many people are like, why? Why do I need to spend that money? Well, do you have drums on your truck still? It is a archaic technology.
Yeah.
They overheat. There's so many components in there that can go wrong. Disc brakes are going to stop you in half the time, half the distance.
Yeah.
The calipers and the brake pads were all off of a GM model pickup. So you can pick up most of your parts that you need at your local auto parts store.
Yeah.
We use the Dexter products, Dexter Kodiak. Well, Dexter bought Kodiak, and Kodiak bought Titan.
Yeah.
Top of the line disc brake components that you can get. We use Dexter axles. We're an authorized distributor of Dexter, Moride, and Roadmaster. We do the brakes, we do suspension, and we do axles. Pretty much all the stuff that the wheels touch or hold the wheels on your trailer.
Yeah.
All the goods underneath. The not pretty stuff that people don't want to spend their money on, but the #1 safety things you can do.
Nice.
Woo woo!
Hell yeah.
Cue bloopers!
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone, I'm Jared with and I'm
Yes. Let us know the trailer and where you're at, and specifically for we're gonna edit. We are gonna edit that
we'll
part.
edit that one up.
The